So the point here is, all of us standing on the side of the road looked at this spot, and none of us would have put a culvert there. This type of information would allow you up front in the planning process to ascertain what the risk of that road failure being. And that might have only been a 1 in 20, 1 in 30 year event. Nonetheless, it did happen. We've got a road, a forestry winter road up in the upper right-hand corner. And every one of those little green plus signs is a culvert. There's a few of them that are missing, but most of them are there. The question was, if I had this type of information up front, and I should have had another slide. If I had the hydrology layer, most would close off. The question simply is, could I have moved my road about 300 meters south and a little bit more than that perhaps? And I could have moved that whole distance without having to put in a culvert. This is an example of taking the information. This is the work of one of my graduate students. This is a soil susceptibility map for soil rutting. And they're simply looking at soil moisture and soil physical properties. And this is for the GHOST stewardship area down our forest land use zone west of Calgary, where we have a lot of rutting issues with respect to recreational areas. This is a road design that was a case study that we did last fall. This is there's a black path going through a line on the left side. That's the road that was proposed to go in. And what we've been spending a lot of time on is developing a piece of software that would tell us how to move from point A to point B across the landscape and to achieve various goals and constraints. And this is a piece of software that's been delivered to us for use in recreational trail development in Alberta. But these are different routes that we're coming up with the model, but one of the routes, the culverts went down from 12 to 1. The main thing here though is this particular company has been very, very helpful, is a research partner. But the road engineers overrid the model on 3 different occasions on the road. They decided, no, it's the model's wrong, and we're going to stay where we wanted to. But it was laid out after 4 years of drought, and last year was very, very wet, northern part of the province. In each of those 3 areas, they had water issues. One of the challenges that we have, in silviculture, and this image isn't going to come up for me for some reason, is just to understand what the opportunities are in the landscape in terms of tree productivity. We take extra water and we convert it into available water for tree productivity. And a lot of our work now with the University of Alberta is refining growth and yield models using moisture. Spatially identifying opportunities. I'm going to go through this really fast because we're running out of time, but this is LiDAR looking at seismic lines and recovery. This is a new project again with the University of Alberta, and we're taking advantage of wet areas mapping, which we can then convert into soil temperature, and knowing that wet soils are cold, and all the different LiDAR attributes, and try to find out which seismic lines would be the most receptive to reclamation. This is using the DEM to inform risk. This is an image that nobody in the room has probably seen yet, but this is an application for the oil and gas sector. The image on the left is last year's oil spill, the biggest one in the province. And what's turned on in the left image is the provincial hydrology layer. That is the level of information that we would have had to respond to the oil spill in the first hours after it happened. The image on the right is the new stream layer that was predicted by wet areas mapping. Profoundly different. So the information on the right, in discussions with energy users, they would have, if they had that information within the first minutes of the spill, they would have known exactly what stream channels, specific locations to set up their containment. This is looking at the same spill, taking wet areas mapping and doing all kinds of things with it. predicting how that spill is going to move across the landscape. Everything that we've developed in the model is predicting how water is going to move across the landscape. That could be brackish water, it could be oil, gasoline. We can predict using the model how the solid is going to move across, but also how it's going to move in soil solution if it penetrates down within the top meter of the soil profile. So at the end of the day, this is an initiative that simply allows people who are working on the landscape every single day to do something and to make better decisions to ensure sustainability. Our view as a department is if people in this room can make better decisions on the landscape, maybe that means just avoiding a culvert or putting one in where you didn't know there was one, then we as Albertans all win by default. With that, I'm just going to show a quick video. And I've lost track of what the video is. Why exactly?
Is that George Costanza's father? My first. That's
His name was
So this is a video that we created, or I to say we, our research team at the University of New Brunswick. And it's different from most that you've seen. It's actually a fly-through down in Kananaskis. What's different about it is it's generated entirely from the billions of individual light hits from the LiDAR. So every tree that you see on the landscape is actually there, or was there on the day the plane flew overhead. Every time there's a small gap in the canopy, it was there. So
it's gone viral. 173 hits. Is it
and if you want to show your friends that video, it's now posted on YouTube. You just type in wet areas mapping. So, thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, I might have time.
Good afternoon. Wow, technology is amazing. That is really interesting what you can do with that kind of information. When you think back, how many people in this room have been in the industry for, let's say, at least 25 years? Oh, there's got to be more than that. Oh, a lot of people. If you look back 25, 30 years ago and just think about the industry, what was the main login system at that time? Horse and chainsaw. That is amazing. When you think about what has changed from that time to now, I mean, it was a major breakthrough when that thing called a grapple skidder came along. It was a major breakthrough when we went from a chainsaw to a shear to a chain head. I mean, just the technology that has taken place over this last 20, 30 years, or even 40 years, it's an amazing rate. So what I'd like to do today is we'll build on that a little bit, but I'm just going to give you a quick update. I'm not going to take a lot of time. I'm going to give you a quick update on what the WOLF program has been up to, some of the tools that you might want to use that are available to you for training your workers, even for working with the public. We'll go the right way this time. Okay, so we have some challenges in the industry. Who in this room is involved with compliance? So ensuring that people are following the legislation. How many people in this room are involved with conformance, where you have your company standards? They may be above what the legal requirement is, but they may be for an ISO certification or FSC. How many people are involved in that type of thing? Yeah, very few of us aren't involved in compliance or conformance in one manner or another these days. We also have the issue of dealing with the public, and really, I think as one of the speakers talked about, the necessity to do things right these days, it's got to be pretty high on our list, because the opportunity for information to disseminate very, very quickly, it's instantaneous when things aren't done properly, and we've seen results of that. So really important there. Also opportunities. I mean, just when you look at labor in our business, just so many times companies have to back off of opportunities because they just don't have the expertise to get us where they need to be. Cost of operations, when we really don't have that expertise, we do one of two things normally. We overcompensate, which costs us a tremendous amount of money, or we don't get it right, which can end up on the front page of the newspaper or in litigation or whatever. So we can certainly be negatively impacted. So when we look at what's happening in our industry, right now the prediction for the foreseeable future is that there's going to be a considerable demand for people who are competent to work in the resource-based industries. And if you look at what happened over this last year, there were over 90 jobs, professional type jobs, on the website throughout the course of the year. That's quite a few, quite a few. So finding competent people to fill those jobs is going to become as much of a challenge as it has been, or considerably more. And here's the other, I'm not sure if I'm happy about this one or not, but 1/3 of the current forest sector workers will be retiring by 2020. Isn't that interesting? How many people in this room are planning on being here after 2020? I know I'm going to be retired by then. I'm actually older than I look. So when you look at what's the issue, why we should be able just to get people from wherever to fill these particular needs and niches. Well, you look at the complexity. When you look at things in terms of research or technology, regulation. Used to be in Alberta we had, how many pieces of legislation dealt with water? One primarily, maybe two if you're working in the green zone. Now there's 3 pieces provincially and 2 federally, and this just keeps, it gets more complex. Doesn't mean it's not right. It just gets more complex. Best management practices. Best management practices, they're an interesting thing. They're kind of a double-edged sword, because if you're not careful, your best management practice can cost you a lot of money, one way or the other, in that you may be doing things that nice to do, but not necessarily getting the objective from an environmental or safety perspective that you need. Also, if you're taken to task, one of the things that the courts are going to look at, of course, is what are the best management practices that are in place in addition to the legal requirements. So there's a whole bunch of issues around that. Social demand. Social demand has increased considerably. And it's all happening at such a fast pace. That's probably the biggest change. It's all happening so fast these days. Now, excuse me, when you look at those needs, one would think it would be pretty easy to entice people into the schools and to start to build that capacity, that competency for the future. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing that a lot of the schools are either closing, or they're under-enrolled, or they're changing their priorities and their focus to other, I guess, resource-based opportunities, but not necessarily the type that we need for some of the industries we're involved with. And a lot of them too are more on the social aspects of forestry or resource management. So when you look at the industry and the types of things we're doing, we've got some challenges. And even when you look at in-house and peer-to-peer, we've really got to step up here. So, and I'm not trying to. My purpose here today isn't to sell Wolf to you. My purpose is to explain a little bit about what Wolf is and show you some tools that you might want to take advantage of, and that's about it. Because Wolf, what Wolf is attempting to do is to provide quality education opportunities for forest and natural resource workers. So, and also you can use this with your public advisory committees or people who are interested. We've got the universities, we've got the colleges, and we've got these extension programs, and Wolf just attempts to take that information and put it into packages that are valuable for all of us to use as training tools. So Wolf is not for profit. For those of you who have not been involved with Wolf before, it's a partnership. It's your contractors, your companies, your governments. It's basically all of us in this industry in partnership to try and develop some decent training programs that people can use. I have a lot of partners, official partners. You look at SRD and Alberta Environment, Boreal Research Institute, some of the manufacturers. So there's a lot of people involved with Wolf, but Wolf will only be as good as the people involved and the time and effort that's put into some of these courses. So it's not a lot of paid people involved in the program. For training subjects, look at some safety, safe work practices, environmental protection, emergency response. We've got a pretty good emergency spill response program. Operational performance, and even when you look at imagery structure, we even have some courses on forest stewardship and that type of thing. So there's some good opportunity there. What Wolf tries to do is take it from the why to the how. And Wolf doesn't write legislation, doesn't even write best management practices. Wolf tries to take the best management practices that companies have in place and take the legislation and take the latest research and package that into training modules that make sense and that work for you folks. It is really about the science, the regulation, and the best practices. We try and focus on those three main criterias. And of course we use the pillars of sustainability as well. So the courses are designed and delivered by hopefully experts in their fields. And we've got some pretty good people that have been involved in Wolf throughout time. We do have competency testing, because as you know, that one of the things you need to do is be able to demonstrate that people were there and that people were actually awake and paying attention. So there is a competency testing component with all of the courses. We do try and meet or exceed the CSA, FSC, SFI, any of the international environmental type standards, or at least provide the training so that your people understand what those standards are and what those requirements are. Basically, the program is available to anybody, anywhere. It's a matter of talking to the folks in the office and arranging your program, arranging for instructors, whatever best fits your needs, or just arranging for the information that you can use for your own purposes. So from an environmental perspective, there's 19 one-day courses that are currently on the agenda. Now I will say that Wolf is in the process of reviewing some of these programs and revising them. I haven't been too involved the last few years. I've been so busy. I've been out of province a lot. Prior to that, I was involved with the initial courses, the original courses that were made, and a lot of those courses were designed so that they were standalone, one-day, two-day courses. So you basically had to cover off the planning side of things, the legislation, all the environmental issues, all the way through to whether you were installing watercourse crossings or constructing roads. With all the courses that are available now, you will find a little bit of overlap in there, and Wolf is doing some work to start to take some of that out, but you just need to take a look at the course and see which one meets your needs best, because you've got a wide selection. And these are just some examples. Now what I will do is we'll be set up in the Raleigh room, just outside the doors to your right down the hall. And we will have examples of some of the online training for you to have a look at. So you can come in, pop out, whatever, just have a look and see what would work for you maybe in some of your training requirements. Some more of the courses that the 19. We also have 13 one-day courses available for operational type training. So that's getting into the basic equipment operation itself. Some of the courses there: log quality, maintenance and service, various equipment, silviculture operations, actually even get into woodland mapping there. And there's some business training. And I haven't actually seen that myself, but I know I do have the manuals in the other room, so if you want to have a look at those. Sometimes it helps with the contractors. Especially the newer contractors, sometimes need a bit of a hand to get that part of it under control. And all of these, the environmental courses are currently available online, so you can take them from the relaxation of your home, I guess, and you can do your competency testing online and get your certificate. So that's a good tool, because when you're working with your operators, you certainly, and one of the things that we find, and if you come and have a look at some of the demonstrations, we find that it's a good tool to use to go through some of the slides online and then stop and talk to the people you have that you're working with, and you can have some good discussions, and they get the information that way, and they still get the testing. So you can have a look at those later. Theoretically, all the instructors need to be trained. We're supposed to take we do take the training at NATE. It was interesting because when I first went there, I said, "Wow, everybody has to take this?" And they said, "Yes, it doesn't matter if you're a PhD, you have to take." In fact, one of my instructors from my program was a PhD, and he went to NATE, and everybody has to take it. So it's kind of a good course, because when you're dealing with adult education, you're going to do things a lot different than when you're dealing with other audiences. There is simulator training as well, and there's evaluation that goes with that. And Bevan has the simulators set up over there, and if you've never had a look at those or seen what they do, it's a good idea to have a look at them, because it's interesting to watch these these younger people come in and start to work the controls. And of course, hand-eye coordination is a huge part of all of our equipment these days, because it's very technical. It's all automated. And you can tell fairly quickly how people are going to do. And if you're a contractor and you've got a $500,000 or a $750,000 piece of equipment sitting there, you might want to know if the people you're thinking about putting on that equipment actually can, if the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. And that equipment is a really good tool to test that. The other thing that equipment does is those simulators, they're very accurate, and if the operator is going onto a piece of equipment that has similar controls, it's a big head start. So good opportunity there. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but Wolf is in partnership with, in this case, Northern Lakes College, New Caledonia, and Vancouver Island U. So that's the WEOP program. I don't believe that one has run too much lately, but it's a 12-week program that deals primarily with operating equipment. The second program, which is running, is the Harvest Technician program, which is a 38-week program. It's basically an entry level. Like, we're not, and this is just Wolf doesn't put these courses on themselves. They work with Northern Lakes College or whichever to help put some of the modules together for these courses. So we're not in conflict or competition with some of the technical schools. These are for different audiences. And of course, some of the acknowledgements there, I won't get into that, but there is one slide I wanted to come back to, and that's this one. And when you look at some of the challenges that we need to deal with in terms of really, how do you make somebody confident? Have any of you folks ever dealt with anybody that hasn't been competent enough to achieve the result you needed? No? It's really difficult. You know, it's not like, well, it's not rocket science, is it? It's not rocket science. In fact, rocket science is based on a lot of science and math and engineering and physics, and if you have the mental capacity, you can figure out rocket science. Dealing with people, dealing with operators, dealing with at any level, is way more difficult than rocket science. That's just the way it is. We used to excuse it. We used to call the issue, he just had a brain fart. Anybody ever hear that before? Just stop thinking for a period of time. But you know what? We're dealing with people, we're dealing with operators, we're dealing with foremen, supervisors, managers, owners, contractors, it doesn't matter. We're all in this together. So what we've tried to do with this program is to put some tools that will help you. And if you, I'm going to beat that. If you, you know, as an example, if you're working with a group of contractors and you're doing your startup training for the year perhaps, and you want to refresh people's memories on crossing construction or road maintenance or reclamation or whatever it happens to be, you might find that bits and pieces of these online programs, or maybe there's complete online programs that would meet the bill very nicely for what you're doing that particular day or with that group of people. Same with your public advisory committee, as an example. If you have a public advisory committee and you're trying to you know, deal with some stewardship type issues, or you know, versus having you sit there and trying to explain to them how an AAC is calculated, or how you're trying to protect whether it's a swan habitat or whatever it happens to be, you might find that there's some good information that's already available to you, and you could just, you know, use it as it best fits your needs. But it's another tool for you to have. And then of course, if the other option is to bring in an instructor. I just spent a couple days down in Hinton working with the group down there. That was an interesting experience because I'm working with a group of 15 to 20 people that are all professional foresters, forest technicians, been there for 15 to 30 years. No, that's not true, 35, 37 years. So very competent people. And the nice thing about having, you know, when you go through the online training, you're pretty much constrained to what's there and what you want to contribute in addition to that. When you bring in an instructor, you may find that that person can contribute a lot as well. So it's up to you. But the tools are there, and that was really what I wanted to do today, was just to kind of give you an update on where Wolf is at and some of the new tools, because the online training is fairly new for the Wolf program. So thank you, and any questions?